Hello, everybody. We have Davis back from Shredding the Gnar in Colorado, and Pat has been deep in the lab analyzing this year's crop of rookies. Got a ton of ADP movement to discuss with Anthony Richardson, Rachaad White, and yes, even Skyy Moore rocketing up draft boards. We'll break it all down here on this beautiful Friday of NFL Combine Week. Welcome to Chasing Kerrane. ADP Chasing.
Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your site. Jamar. Alpha play chase. Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally fist boys. You're right.
Hey, everybody. How are we doing?
Doing good.
Excited to have Davis joining us. Davis, how was your time out in Colorado?
It was amazing. Skiing it was a little bit harder than I remembered. I hadn't done it since I was young, like 14 or 15. So it was a little bit more difficult than I remembered. You're so beat at the end of the day, like I think if you're good, it's not that much of a taxing experience, but when you're bad and you're basically using your entire body just to stay upright going down the mountain, it gets difficult.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at. I'm going skiing next weekend and kind of got back into it a little bit last year after not really doing it much since high school. And Brittany learned. So we're kind of like, I'm actually like, it's kind of nice that she's learning because I'm like, I'm basically not that far ahead.
Yeah, we can do some greens, babe. We can.
Yeah, let's do some green. You want to do a green? Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like I ski a lot, but I'm always overly ambitious on ski trips. And by like day 3, I'm just like, why did we plan 5 days of skiing in a row? My legs just can't handle this anymore. It's a grind.
And you don't stretch, and like your brain is not processing it like you're doing. Like when I'm gonna go golf or skateboarding or go to the gym or whatever, I'm gonna stretch, I'm gonna hydrate, I'm gonna do what I need to do. But skiing, you're like, oh, I'm just hanging out with my bros, and then all of a sudden you're going cold and you're at the top of a mountain and you're like, I gotta get to the bottom here, And it's kind of
usually like having a couple beers too, and like doing extreme physical exhaustion when you probably shouldn't be drinking. Correct. On top of that. It's a funny sport. Have you guys been following the NFL Combine news at all? I know there's been like a lot of coach interviews and stuff this week. Curious if anything has really jumped out. I know we haven't really seen the skill position players do much of the combine yet. So yeah, curious if you guys have any takeaways from the interviews or anything so far.
I couldn't be following it any closer, I don't think.
I'm not following it that close with I will be following extremely close once we get the wide receivers, tight ends.
Yeah, I don't care about the edge rushing 40 times or anything other than for like wagering purposes. But the number one takeaway for me is I literally will not draft the Dallas Cowboy. Like I'm not doing it. Like everything Mike McCarthy says is dumber than the last thing he said. Like the idea that he and Kellen Moore wanted to part ways because Kellen Moore wanted to score points.
Wanted to score too many points.
Mike McCarthy's like, Kellen, scoring points, efficiently moving the ball down the field. That's not really the vibe.
That touchdown really hurt our defense, man. Cool it.
I love when he thought of that insult. He thought it was like so smart in his head. It's like, I'm going to criticize this guy for wanting to score points. Like
this guy's trying to light up the scoreboard. Total idiot.
He doesn't get so what dumb. We do here. This is not Cowboys football.
Well,
oh my God.
That's it. Obviously, I completely agree. McCarthy's a stone cold moron, but I also just drafted a big board team and I stacked up the Cowboys because I feel like the ADPs are like fairly palatable for everybody. I got CeeDee Lamb in the second. I went Jonathan Taylor, then CeeDee Lamb out of the 111. Dak, you can get. I think I got him at the 7-11, which isn't an amazing price.
I think that feels rich for Dak.
I don't think it's that rich given that he can generate a spike week because the defense isn't going to be as good. So there will be volume weeks. Just they won't be McCarthy's also, choice, but they'll happen.
It's in the context of the other QB ADPs.
That's the thing is my brain is not fully translated to the new reality.
It's like Trevor Lawrence in the 4th versus Prescott.
For
at
context,
7.
like Deshaun Watson, who was the worst quarterback in the league last year, goes like 2 picks after Dak.
Do you
So.
okay? Let's stare into our crystal ball. Close your eyes. You know, we're imagining ourselves.
I feel like I'm talking to Kitchen.
We're in August. Kerrane's trying to defend his title. We're all just, we're sick. We want to win the $2 million. So
I just want 0.05 Kerranes. That's all I want.
We just want to get to 0.5 of Kerranes, right?
I can't keep my eyes closed this long.
It's do we think that when the more casuals than the true sick fucks who are drafting right now, do we think Trevor Lawrence is going to go in the 4th? Do we think that Mahomes, we're going to see a sliding scale of these guys almost for sure, right?
I think these ADPs are bad, personally. I don't see how, it's fine. You'll probably do okay in advance rates and stuff, but you're trying to win 3 straight uncorrelated tournaments and then finish first out of a huge field in the final week. Not having a second round skill player seems like a disadvantage to do that, especially if there's upside at the quarterback position later. And I think there is.
Well, my sense is that it's probably being driven by the uncertainty. This is probably going to be the most uncertain quarterback offseason in my adult life. I mean, maybe 50% of teams in the league are going to have a new quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I don't know. My take on it is I think for sure the Herbert, Lawrence, even Burrow types will slide, but I'm not actually sure that Allen, Mahomes, Hurts will slide all too much. One, I just think the casuals drafting will, they are going to see those names be best quarterback in the league. I want Mahomes, Josh Allen on my team. And number 2, while I do think some of the quarterbacks later have upside to get to 20 points per game, Allen, Mahomes have been consistently doing 25 plus points per game over the last several years. And I think it's pretty predictable at this point. They'll do it again. It's hard for me to see the ceiling of someone getting to that.
No, they won't. But you only need it for 1 week. You need to get through to week 17 and then get a spike week from someone else. And then if you get that spike week, you're now a massive favorite over those elite quarterback teams because they paid 1-2 turn prices. You're getting a player at the 1-2 turn on top of, the 2v2 versus if you get a spike week from a dude in round 10, you get a skill player in the second round versus their 10th.
In any given week, let's say Jalen Hurts is minus 200 to score more fantasy points than Kenny Pickett, right? Does that sound right? Minus 200-ish, 70%-ish?
Yeah, I mean, I would put it a lot higher for him to have a spike week. I think he's more than
for him to separate.
What I'm saying is minus 200 favorites lose all the time. Is basically the point.
Yeah, but I mean, in defense of the Hurts drafter, the odds that he has a meaningful spike week are better than minus 200. But still, yes. I think
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking there's a reason in DFS. I'm not huge into it. You guys know it better than me, but there's a reason people pay up for the top price quarterbacks in DFS.
It's actually kind of so yes, you do pay up for the top price quarterbacks a lot, but a lot of the time, analysis of top 1% finishes, milli maker finishes, it actually tends to be your Trubisky's, your Daniel Jones, it's those are the type of guys that actually end up having a really high top 1% finish rate, cheaper quarterbacks with a little bit of rushing.
This is what I'm saying. Your odds, if you're playing in a DraftKings style best ball tournament where you're looking to make a 12-team field in the final round is only 12 teams, I would be much more open to these prices at quarterback. But if you're looking at a big final week, it's not that any one of these late round quarterbacks is particularly likely to spike. But if you get that spike, it's massive leverage off. I mean, at these prices, it's just massive.
Yeah. I think you guys are making good points. I'm still a little bit more open to it than I think you guys are, just because I think the probability of a Josh Allen, Mahomes, Hurts spike week that just massively separates from the field is pretty likely and somewhat fairly baked into those prices. And also the fact that I don't know, in these tournaments, you probably need 2 or maybe even 3 of your stacks to go off over that 3-week span. So you just need Allen to really separate in one of those 3 weeks, like 15, 16, or 17 to carry you. And then maybe, have a cheaper guy in week 17 that
in these contests specifically isn't that worse though. In the big board, in these really early ones, I feel like it's worse because there's so much uncertainty with the stacking, right? Like obviously if you get it right, but like what is the Bills wide receiver room going to look like in 6 months? What is the Chiefs wide receiver like the Chiefs wide receiver situation? I mean, it's like who knows? Like they could cut MBS. Like the Juju's going to be on a different team. Like there's so many, and I mean, Sam, I think you're right. Like I think a Mahomes stack, if I got to choose, like that would probably be, I'd probably do Hurts stack would be like the number one thing I'd want in a theoretical week 17, but a Mahomes would probably be number 2. But I mean, it could be like, they're just like, literally, I have no idea who is going to be catching passes for Mahomes next year. Like they're going to look so different in my opinion.
Yeah. And kind of on the flip side of that, I brought this up last week. You can go Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Tua, who's got an ADP of 96. So now I actually have a legit stack that if it goes off, I'm got the entire passing offense, most likely.
With like a ceiling.
With a huge ceiling and a quarterback that can come along for a big old spike week in Tua. We know he can. Is he more risky than the top guys?
Do you take Jacoby Brissett on that team or
I don't think
Skylar
so.
Thompson or
I don't think even with 20 rounds.
It's Teddy Bridgewater. It's Teddy Bridgewater.
Oh God, he'll get injured by the first quarter. Yeah, no, I think the QB stuff is interesting. I'm definitely like, I want to keep monitoring it this offseason, and especially if the prices don't change. Like, I think at some point you got to ask yourself, are you willing to just have 0 Chiefs, Bills, Eagles stacks throughout the whole year if the prices
you
really
can build
do
Eagle
hold up?
stacks though. Like this is a thing. You want to talk about the DFS comparisons. Like in DFS, you can often go with a stack of a team and then a cheaper quarterback to save salary. So you can do that with the Eagles. You can go AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert. You can tack on a Kenny Gainwell or whatever, and you've got the Eagles. Now, if the Eagles go off and it's through the air, you might be able to be okay at quarterback, especially, if you were able to go down and find an Anthony Richardson or something, he gives you a spike week. We'll get to him later. But there's other guys, there's other dudes who I think are very palatable that can at least have a shot of keeping you in contention. And then it's not that you need that quarterback to outscore Hurts when the Eagles go off. So you need to keep you close enough so that your second round pick can help you get there.
I think Pat is making the best point, which is that the easiest spot to make points up at in a final is going to be at quarterback, right? Like if you have the wide receiver, like if you just got to choose, I want to choose the highest scoring running back, highest scoring wide receiver, highest scoring tight end, highest scoring quarterback. I guess you'd probably actually take the highest scoring tight end because the floor at tight end is so low, but wide receiver would probably be 2. You'd probably say I'd take the highest scoring. Quarterback would be last if you got to choose. It would be because we literally had this, Pat. You had Brady and Daniel Jones
went off,
and it almost actually hurt you that they both.
It actually hurt me because Mike Evans scored too many points, so that was a concern. I still needed Godwin and DJ Moore to do stuff, but like Brady made my final lineup, but I would have won with Daniel Jones as well because he had such a good game.
Correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. There'll be, I think this quarterback debate is going to go on through the whole season. Let's get into.
I don't think that your advance rates will be bad by drafting these quarterbacks. I think they'll probably be pretty good.
We don't care about advance rates, bro. We're chasing career.
Yeah, I was about to make the Liam argument that like, what if Josh Allen is the best pick because he has a really low advance rate and then smashes in the finals?
You could make that. It's a lot. He could be Mike Evans, maybe.
No, I think that argument is bad at quarterback, though. I think that argument is really good at tight end. I think that's the best one where you could be like, I literally do not care how many points my second tight end in Best Ball Mania 4 scores for the entirety of the season. If he gets 18 in week 17, that's the Alberto argument, basically.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think
I didn't think Alberto would make an appearance.
Yeah,
Less than 20 minutes into the show.
I'm not letting it die. I mean,
1450 Alberto's first mention. Unbelievable.
I mean, 15 minutes into the show, we have hit the core of the mental illness of best ball, which is that so many of your decisions are going to end up not mattering. Like so much of we're going to spend so much time thinking about it. We're going to do all these shows. We're going to do all these drafts. And so much of it is going to be randomness in terms of the group that you draft against, the pods you get put in the playoffs, when a guy twists his ankle, when he doesn't twist his ankle. And basically, literally all that matters is generating the most amount of points in week 17. I mean, we did this. I did this thought experiment last year at the end of the season, which is took all the highest scoring players at the position in every round, 1 through 18 in Underdog. And we did the math and we figured out that team would not have advanced. That team would have been way below the cutoff line of what would have advanced. So like you literally had the optimal lineup for Underdog scoring in week 18, and it would not have generated enough points to advance there, basically.
Oh my God. It wouldn't have advanced. When would it have gotten knocked out? Did you?
Probably. It was something like 200 or 300 points worse than the median advancing score.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, like last year, the guy who won the regular season, King Cap, his best team got eliminated in the first round. It's like sickening, right? It's just, you just have to, which is actually, I think, an argument for correlating even more. Like the week 7, like the best ball mockers, they were like, oh, all that matters is week 17. You didn't draft Josh Jacobs, bro. Have fun staying poor. And Josh Jacobs was like on none of the finals teams. I think Josh Jacobs, I off the top of my head, I think he scored 28 half PPR points the 3 playoff weeks, I believe. But the thing with that is that's so random is just like you take the 17 weeks and you like put it into a randomizer, and it could be that Josh Jacobs like best weeks come in 15, 16, and 17, and he has really like there's no like I think there's almost like no real lesson from that. You can make the argument maybe like rookies get better at the end, veterans tail off. I kind of buy that, but with Josh Jacobs, I think that was just pure randomness. Like
it was total randomness,
right?
No, it was 100%. It was 100% random. But the lesson actually is that having the quote unquote league winner is actually bad. You actually like having 50% Josh. Like let's say last year,
Justin Jefferson was the playoff winner, and then he did nothing in the final, which is one of the reasons that Austin Eckler going off for my team was so massive, because not only
because you couldn't have both of them.
You couldn't have both, so it was direct leverage off of Justin Jefferson. So I mean, that's obviously pure randomness as well. But
but that's actually instructive. That's actually a way to think about drafting, right? So if there are 2 players whose combinatorial ownership is either low or impossible, you should start thinking about, okay, if Justin Jefferson and Austin Eckler is an impossible team, when I take or if it's a possible team and I'm wanting leverage off that decision. So like when I take Jonathan Taylor over Bijan, and let's say Bijan goes to the Cardinals, right? So then on Jonathan Taylor teams, maybe you're more likely to take Rondale Moore, right? Or maybe you're more likely to take Kyler or whoever, and that is like literally like 9th layer, like probably too much to even be like, it's like probably too much to even be thinking about.
That's when it's like, is this sharp or insane?
I don't know. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough at math to know, honestly.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell.
But I do think your point about the correlation being maybe still underappreciated. I agree with
underappreciated.
That. As someone who won with a highly correlated lineup, surprised no one that I do agree with that. But the way I would put it is like, it's not that like being correlated is necessarily going to guarantee anything for you. Far from it. But if you're like significantly better than the rest of the field, your odds of making a Best Ball Mania final the way they had it last year is like, you do well to get there once every 5 years. Sam's super sharp, so you got 2 in this year somehow. But you do well just to get 1 in every 5 years. When you get it, when that happens and your number's called, you want a lineup that's got a legit shot. That's actually like, you can see the path. Like, okay, like if this game goes off and if this game goes off, now we're talking. I mean, I do really feel strongly that you don't just want to get there and it's like a bunch of dudes and you're like, if I hit, a 10-leg parlay, I'm in.
Especially when the final now is, well, we'll see how they structure it this year, but last year was 470 people in the final. Like, you need correlation, which I'm totally on board with that whole take. Like, I'm caring about stacking, I think, even more this year than last year. Like, if I'm in the 9th round and I took Justin Fields and, Darnell Mooney is still 20 picks ahead of ADP, but like I have a chance at missing with the next pick, I'm probably just going to take him. Because like when it comes to week 17, I don't want a naked Justin Fields in the final. And maybe that's a bad example with Justin Fields because they're rushing, but you get my point.
Well, no, but I actually think it's a good example because it's like so far down that like,
yeah, it's like, who cares? This could be inefficient. Yeah. Like,
it's like, oh, you spent $4 instead of $3. You blew it. Like, not really. You know what I mean? If you're thinking about in auction terms, like maybe
that's
it was a
always,
$6
that's
guy
always
instead of a $5
been,
guy.
That's always been how I've like after like round 10, like I took a bunch of Jalen Tolbert last year, who I think maybe ended up didn't even record a catch, but like I'd probably do that. I'd probably do that same thing again. Like 3rd round wide receiver of an offense I like, and I had a lot of the quarterback. I mean, and I ended up being like one of the worst prices, but like who cares,
Yeah.
Yeah, the price made it a little tougher, but like, yeah, I had Thornton on mine, and he didn't really do anything, and then he got a touchdown in the final.
Well, he probably made for sure. I bet he made your lineup the week he scored 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that one week he had like two usable weeks, I think, all year.
He almost had a second touchdown in week 17 because I had him on one of my teams.
I know.
I was tilting that hard.
I'm aware. He almost had that touchdown.
That would have brought me from 198th to like 176. So would have been huge for me. Anyways, let's get to these ADPs. First guy I want to talk about that jumps out here, Anthony Richardson. And for people following along on audio, we're now looking at the largest ADP risers from the past week, the top 10 biggest ADP risers since February 24th. Anthony Richardson is the biggest, I think, for the second week in a row. He jumped up about 25 spots last week in ADP. He again is up another 25 spots and now sits at 170 in terms of ADP. I think this is largely driven by betting market movements where his odds of going number 1 overall have greatly increased in the past couple of days. Just a lot more buzz that the NFL media scout types are really buying into him as like a legit prospect, reducing the odds of us getting into like a Malik Willis type situation. So I think that's what is driving this. But yeah, curious, starting with you, Davis, what do you think of this price for Anthony Richardson at 170 overall? For context and other QBs, that puts him at QB 26 behind Jordan Love, Kenny Pickett, CJ Stroud, but ahead of guys like Sam Howell, Mac Jones, Jimmy G, those types.
So I guess the issue I have with Anthony Richardson is I'm pretty confident he's not going to play as a rookie. I think this is now, is he the name he's getting compared to a lot is Malik Willis. He's not Malik Willis, right? Malik Willis played at Liberty. Anthony Richardson played at Florida. A lot different levels of competition. I think Richardson is a way better.
He's way younger too, right?
Yes, he's younger. He was a more efficient, bigger. Yeah. The thing that's going around right now is how much bigger this dude is than Bryce Young. He looks like a linebacker, and Bryce Young looks like someone's personal assistant who happens to be at the combine or something. But I think that actually probably the best comp for me is going to be Trey Lance.
Yeah, he's Trey Lance.
Yeah,
that's how
where the team. I mean, like we had our opportunity, like there was an opportunity for Trey Lance to play, and he didn't play as a rookie unless it absolutely was needed. And I already know that this is going to happen. Some team's going to trade up. They're going to select Anthony Richardson. They're going to, we traded a 2024 first round pick, and and it's, I don't know, we signed Ryan Tannehill as our veteran quarterback. We signed Carson Wentz as our veteran quarterback, whatever. And that vet is going to play like 11 games, and people like me are going to be like, why wouldn't you just play Anthony Richardson? Let him learn on the job. And he's just not going to play. And it's going to be frustrating.
I think that's definitely in play. And I think it's even in play that he gets the full Lance treatment where we like never really see him because he lands on, a team that feels confident enough. Like maybe if he goes to the Lions, and they're like making a playoff push, they would just straight up not play him. But I think that what happened to Lance was, a fairly low end outcome for him in terms of the range of outcomes to not play as the number 3 overall pick. I think he could have kind of a Lamar Jackson type of introduction, type of rookie year where he comes in maybe halfway through the season. I can't remember when he took over for Flacco, but I feel like it was around midseason, and certainly played a lot more than Lance did. And so to me, the bet with Richardson has been, I'm getting this guy for the fantasy playoffs. I just need him to be playing in weeks 15, 16, and 17. And he's a spike week generator for me. I think that we're now nearing a point where that's starting to be like not the best bet in the world, because you're starting to have to pay. Like, I did just draft him in the 14th round today.
I'm doing that.
Yeah, that's like, there's now some downside. Like if he doesn't play until the very end of the season, you might have a lot of trouble advancing that team without, but that was a 3 quarterback build. And actually I did Prescott, Watson, and Richardson. So I'm clearly like, Richardson, you can take the season off and show up for me in week 17 and we're good. But I think at this price, you kind of have to think about it a little bit more, but I still think he's worth drafting, especially if you don't have a bunch. I've got like 73% right now. So I can pass occasionally.
I definitely see both sides of the argument here. I did want to just quickly show this to make the point that I definitely think there are scenarios where he doesn't play this year, but there are just so many teams with like absolutely nothing at quarterback that if you're projecting Anthony Richardson to not start games this year, then you quickly have to start projecting like Kyle Trask, Jared Stidham, Sam Darnold, Matt Corral. Like you gotta project someone like that to start games if Richardson is not starting. Like, Atlanta, Carolina, Houston, Colts, Las Vegas.
Well,
New
what
Orleans.
I think the most likely spot that I see that I am hearing smoke on is Seattle, but Seattle would just give Geno Smith a 1-year contract for a lot of money because their cap situation is fine. You give Geno 1 year. I mean, they could give him like 1 year, $35 million and just have him in, because they're not going to win the Super Bowl. They don't care. So
yeah, no,
that's
definitely
I think
true.
that's,
yeah.
I think a spot
What
that
scenario is that? That's not a Lance scenario though. That's like is that a Pickett scenario where we get
that's a Pickett scenario, but where the quarterback in place is above a Trubisky level, right? Where it's like it's not painful to watch him.
Is
play.
It Ritter? Does it take as long as Ritter to pass Mariota? That type of thing?
No, I think Ritter
was so bad.
So
yeah.
Well, Ritter's so bad, right? But Geno's better than Mariota, I think.
I think the Lions and the Seahawks seem like the two downside scenarios, and then like I'm having a hard time imagining another one where he doesn't play right away. Like
if he goes to the Colts, I think he's probably their week 1 starter.
Oh yeah, who do they have under contract?
You can't. No, I can't co-sign with that because you can never put the Colts out of figuring out just finding the dustiest guy to come play quarterback for them. We're in.
Don't they already have him? His name's Matt Ryan. I think he's under contract still.
I think he's gonna retire.
I
think Matt Ryan is gonna retire.
Yeah. Anyways, I think at the price of 170, I think he's going to continue to rise. The other thing I wanted to add,
going to rise.
I think so too.
He'll continue to rise.
Where are you guys kind of feeling queasy and probably passing more often than not? I guess, Davis, are you already there?
This just feels like, I guess the issue is the way I would have treated Richardson would have been the way I would have treated rookie or Trey Lance, which is I preferred to take Lance in 3 quarterback builds.
Yeah.
But it feels well, I guess it feels like the 3 quarterback build is so bad because you are probably sacrificing absolute ceiling in terms of you're not taking
but it's
Allen,
20
Hurts,
rounds.
Mahomes. Yeah, but then so then you make your round 20 pick, the guys we just talked about, right? A Ritter, a Trask, whoever, like just a guy who might get 8 starts.
Yeah, but you can also go like to Stafford and Richardson, and then it's like just get me there too, and Stafford and Richardson get me over the top. Give me that week 17 spike week.
The opportunity cost at other positions once you get to pick 170, I'd say is also really low. Like wide receivers, you're looking at like Adam Thielen,
they're gone. Yeah,
John Mechie, MVS. Like running back, you're looking at some of the dart throw rookies, and then like I don't know, Jerick McKinnon, Samaje Perine. So like maybe there's some opportunity cost there, but I wouldn't be queasy, Pat, to your question, until he gets to like, if he got like above Stroud or like above the Stafford Carr types, like guys that are more guaranteed to start throughout the year, I would start to get queasy there. But he's still going very much in a range with like, he's going next to Love, Howell, Jimmy G, like guys that have their own uncertainty about whether they're going to start themselves. So it's like at that price, like give me the upside guy. Like if I'm not sure they're going to start.
Who's more likely to start in week 17? Just week 17. Who's more likely to start? Anthony Richardson or Trey Lance?
Lance.
I'd say Richardson.
I think it's Richardson, but I know you're a Purdy guy.
You guys, everyone has abandoned our boy. You know, it's like you face a little bit of adversity.
Including his head coach.
Did you
and his GM. Did you see John Lynch?
That's the problem.
This quote, this video going around today of the Seinfeld, like when you ask someone about their relationship, the higher up on your head they touch, and Lynch literally his hand is on top of his head. It's like, but I actually think this is the ultimate bailout scenario for Lance. I know Lance is not on our board here, but this is the absolute ultimate bailout for him because it's March 3rd. They still have not done this surgery on Brock Purdy because the swelling is so bad. And I've done some reading because obviously I'm very invested in this Trey Lance scenario as an owner of him in a lot of $50 dynasty leagues. And I think he's going to get bailed out because I think what's going to happen is the inflammation's going to go down and they're going to go in there and do the surgery and they're going to be like, we just got to give this dude full Tommy John. Because right now, all the surgeons, I mean, this is very inside baseball, but all the surgeons are basically like, there's this hybrid procedure that they've developed for football players because it doesn't need to be as extensive because they don't need to be at 100% max effort the way a baseball pitcher needs to be. So there's like a slightly different way they can do it for football players to get them back up to speed faster. But if it's like all the way torn or the damage is worse than they thought, they're just gonna have to do regular Tommy John. And regular Tommy John, I mean, see you later, kid. You're out for a year minimum. And even then, Purdy's still gonna kind of be behind because it's March. The season starts in under 200 days. He's not going to be ready for training camp. Lance is going to get all the first team reps. And
of course.
Garoppolo's gone, right? Great. Shanahan said it. Garoppolo said it. There's no more. There's not a reunion. There's not another 1-year deal. He's out because Jimmy actually has a chance to make some real money this offseason.
Right.
So I just think,
yeah, that's fair.
And I'm betting on Lance, right? I'm saying Purdy maybe is ready in week 4, but I'm saying the 49ers are 4-0 and Lance has been playing well up until that point, basically.
Well, I've been kind of fudding Lance here, but I was talking to Eric Beinfor, who obviously did not like my FUD. He was saying, why don't you pair Lance and Richardson? You know, because then you're kind of, I kind of like that. I like the idea of like you get your rushing quarterback who's got a little uncertainty at the end of the season, maybe you know, not as much as I'm saying, especially if Purdy's coming out for sure, but a little uncertainty, and then you get the guy who the whole play is week 17, also a rushing quarterback archetype, and then maybe you hit the nuts and you get both live for spike weeks in week 17.
That's the best argument for it is that you could have two guys, you could draft 2 quarterbacks who rush for 1,600 yards combined or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In the chat, Target Hawk says Purdy is a waste of a pick even in round 20. I'm actually kind of on board with this, even though I have been pro Purdy in the past. Like, I think if we get good news on Purdy's health, I think we'll like kind of know like somewhat this offseason if he has a chance of playing this year. And
we should literally know within days. Yeah.
We'll know if he has a chance. So yeah, maybe if we get good news, I'm okay taking him right now. It doesn't seem worth it. I guess my thing is like, okay, we get the bad news for Purdy. He's basically out for the year. The 49ers are going to be in the market for like the Baker, Stidham, Minshew, Brissett tier of veteran quarterbacks, I think.
For sure, yeah.
And I still think there's like, man, it was one game. It was a monsoon, but Lance was so bad against the Bears week 1 that people were already talking about, hey, Jimmy, like these going to.
We're not allowed to talk about that because it rained too hard, Sam.
Yeah,
Once it rains hard, you can't evaluate people anymore.
We're not allowed to talk about it.
Trey Lance is still 22 years old. He's still 22.
And he's played like 2 games in the last 7 years or something. Don't fact check me on that, but
It's the last 4 years. He's played 3.5 games if you count his college put together an exhibition game for him in the COVID year.
When Lance gets benched for Baker Mayfield in Week 11, I am going to have just one of the best victory laps of all time on Twitter.
Oh my God!
I mean, it's very possible. Where does Baker go in these?
Oh God, no! I don't think he gets drafted.
Baker's starting a minimum of 6 games for maybe 3 different teams next year.
Yeah, good luck stacking them up.
All right, I think the people are probably sick of Trey Lance talk.
Yeah,
let's talk Rasheed Shahid. He's another riser, up 12 picks to pick 166 now on Underdog. So one thing I want to note with Shahid that is interesting, he has the 3rd highest yards per route run of any rookie wide receiver since 2013, only behind Justin Jefferson and Odell Beckham. Now, obviously, it's a small sample, but I think that type of profile, I think people are starting to come around to how efficient he was his rookie year, and that's what's kind of driving him up. But I'll give it to you, Kerrane. What do you think of Shahid at this price? I know you've sort of dug deeper into some of the first read data that makes you a little skeptical of Shahid. So maybe break down that case for him there.
Yeah, I was looking at first read data this past year, and one of the things that was interesting is generally you want guys, because if you're absolutely dominating in terms of getting first reads, you might see a first read target on 25% of your routes. But the most elite wide receivers in the league, they're going to have a target per route run of at least that, and maybe more 28%, 29%. So what that tells you is that it's not just that they're the first read on every play. It's not essentially just that, the play calling is designed to get them the ball. They're also getting open. They have a connection with their quarterback on scramble drills or second reads because they're getting open consistently. So therefore, you want guys who are overperforming what you would expect just based on how many first reads they're getting. However, what I was looking at is if you're not getting many first reads at all, and all your production is coming through basically not first read targets, and you're kind of and you're not maybe seeing the field as much in the first place, that can be kind of your classic flash in the pan type wide receiver. And that's where Shahid falls. He only has 13% first read target rate. Not good. That's what Deshaun Jackson has had over the last couple of years, kind of a classic, just kind of a pure, more of just a deep threat, we kind of know he is. That said, I haven't had a problem with him at ADP, because there's a chance that he is flashing serious talent that will make the offense shift the way that they're calling plays and getting this guy the ball a little bit more. So I think you just want to be careful now you're seeing he's a riser a little bit, maybe just be a bit careful about chasing him up the board. But I mean, a lot of guys who people didn't think were going to be anything, of course they're going to have to overperform relative to what the coaches are calling for them, because the coaches don't, they're behind the curve on realizing that this guy's a real talent. So I just think he's got a very low floor, but also does have some ceiling. So I don't mind where he's going.
It seems like a pretty appropriate price, especially because of the changing landscape of the Avalanche, right? In terms of once you've already been buried by the Avalanche, Rasheed Shahid is not, a bad Saint Bernard with a thing of whiskey hanging around its neck. I guess my concern would be twofold, which the first would be, was Shahid just being used last year because the situation was so desperate in New Orleans? It's everyone's hurt, everyone's bad. Jarvis Landry is useless. Michael Thomas is useless. Alvin Kamara can't get any first downs. Andy Dalton's playing terrible, and Jameis has a fractured back, and we're having to use Taysom as an actual tight end because we're just simply running out of bodies. That would be a concern. I believe that Shahid owns the skill set of big plays, he can make stuff happen. He's exciting. But I also believe that Dexter McCluster owned that skill set too. And he did a couple exciting things in the NFL, and then his teams wouldn't use. I believe that McCole Hardman owns that skill set, and he's done nothing to be useful for fantasy. So, and probably the largest concern is I just think the Saints are going to be bad. Like, I just think they're going to be pretty bad on offense. So it's like, how are you correlating him? Are you drafting? Are you like what's Carr's?
I'll tell you one way to correlate him. You draft Taysom Hill, who's kind of your backstop at tight end right now.
What do they? What is Taysom? Is he tight end only?
Yeah, he's tight end eligible again.
Oh my! Well, I mean that's what he's listed at. He had more. I believe he had more. No, that's not, I was going to say he had more targets and pass attempts last year, but I don't think
I think there was a Taysom Hill to Rasheed Shahid like 60-yard touchdown pass. That is correct. I mean Taysom.
It's right there, guys. It's right there.
It's right in front of us. All right, yeah, you got to take Taysom Hill down 14.
I have not as a bit correlated.
I thought you guys were going to tell me he was like a round 10 pick. We're running the Taysom thing back again.
He's pick 144, so I guess end of the 12th round.
I'm fully in on Taysom, and it's a position that completely dries up outside of the rookies. You know, it's like, do you want Taysom Hill or Gerald Everett, who probably doesn't have a team? Gerald Everett's only going like 20 picks after. So I don't know. And I not as a bit, I've correlated Taysom Hill and Chris Olave several times.
Oh man.
I think
I tried so hard to avoid talking about Taysom Hill on the show. I didn't realize Rasheed Shahid was a gateway.
Well, because also shouldn't we put Jameis in the same category of a guy who's probably going to be on a different team next year? Like he's going to be one of these veterans.
I think
because the Saints are going to sign Derek Carr, and that's going to be too much money for them at quarterback. And Andy Dalton will probably be on a different team too. So Taysom will probably be back to being the backup quarterback.
Yeah, and they can't get rid of him. They have to pay him so much money, and there's so much dead
money.
cap. Yeah,
Jameis is a tricky one because he only gets, if they cut him, it's 11 million dead money and only 4 million in cap savings. So I would kind of bet he's back there as at least the backup.
Doesn't Jameis want to start though? Like Jameis is going to look at Kyle Trask starting somewhere or Desmond Ridder starting somewhere and be like, "Come on, dude." Like,
it's a real shame that Kyle Trask is starting for the Buccaneers. They're like the only team who wouldn't bring in Jameis.
Maybe they would though. Honestly, maybe they would.
You think?
I mean, if a team, maybe a team would trade for him, but
because Arians is gone. I think it was an Arians Jameis personality type thing.
Yeah, and I guess Leftwich is gone too. So maybe, although Arians gone because he seems to be running the team. He's always giving quotes about.
Seems like once Brady retired, Arians like came back out of his shadow and started being more visible again. I don't know. But overall with Shahid, I kind of agree. Pat, I'm monitoring. If he continues to rise, I start to get a little worried, but at its cost, he's still, again, like without knowing the landing spots for a lot of these rookies and like a lot of free agent question marks, like Shahid at 166, you're picking him over guys that are basically, there's no opportunity cost at that range of the draft, really. It's super flat. So I think it's totally fine. Yeah. A guy we should talk about here, I attempted to redact him from the chart, but Skyy Moore has been a top 10 riser for the second week in a row. He's up 9 spots now to pick 145 overall. Davis, as the resident Chiefs fan, what do you think of this price for Skyy Moore? I know there's sort of a ton of flux in KC's pass core right now. It's hard to project, but
this is mental illness. I mean, I get it. It's like, so like Juju's probably not going to be on the team, right? Juju will probably be playing for someone else. Hardman probably is going to be playing for someone else. It's like very much out there in the water that this is a horrible wide receiver free agent class. So anyone like Jacoby Myers might get $100 million contract this offseason. He really might.
He will.
Yeah. So that's like kind of what we're looking at. And Hardman, I think even more than Smith-Schuster, and honestly even more than Myers, his agent can at least say, I own one thing that no one else on your roster has, which is I'm just unbelievably fast. I'm so much faster than anyone else you have on your roster. And this is my why is that Brian Windhorst thing. But the team that basically has a world record, like I don't think anyone else has ever had $137 million of cap space in one offseason before. That team's general manager happened to be the director of player personnel for the Kansas City Chiefs when they drafted McCole Hardman. I don't know, 100 spots ahead of consensus out of Georgia.
And who is this? What team is this?
The Chicago Bears. Ryan Poles.
Yeah. And they've been throwing stuff at the wall at wide receiver. The second round pick
for Chase Claypool. The argument against them signing Hardman is that they basically already have Hardman and Darnell Mooney. I don't know how much that matters.
Kind of.
Yeah, but Mooney is on the last year of his rookie deal, isn't he? So, I mean, and Mooney,
I want to say he's got 2 more years.
No disrespect to Darnell Mooney, but I don't think he's a reason to not make any other decisions.
Yeah, I mean, just basically
fine, solid receiver.
He's fine. This is his last year.
The Chiefs are going to get priced out of. Honestly, I think they're going to get priced out of both Smith-Schuster and Hardman, because I think the teams are just going to be so hungry for wide receivers, and to be honest, Kerrane, I think this is kind of a shitty wide receiver class too. Like, I
don't know if it's shitty, but I don't think it's very deep.
There's like 6 guys who I think are pretty good.
Yeah. I don't think it's not going to save anything. I think it's a solid. It's an okay class.
I don't think there's a Garrett Wilson or an Olave or I think
JSN might be. I think JSN has a chance to be for sure.
We got it. He's not running, so we got to see.
I know he's not running. That's a little concerning for sure. He's doing everything else though. He's just not going to run for some reason.
For some reason we're trying to figure out why he's not.
I'm more concerned. I'm more concerned that he's like, sure, I'll bench press and do the 3-cone, but I'm not going to run.
I'll bench press. I'll do the bench press twice if you want.
Yeah, like that is sort of like, I mean, I think he's probably fine. It's just like he's a weird I mean, I know this is not prospect chasing, but he's sort of a weird prospect in that it comes down to about 4 games. He had like 4 absolutely unreal stretch of games, and then he never played again.
And most of them were when Olave and or Wilson were out. His biggest games were when both of them or one of them was out. Not that you should take that away from him. Like, he put up 300 yards, but neither of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, that's still, I think, like crazy impressive, And was a true sophomore when he did that.
Back to more though. So Davis, was your point that with all those guys leaving, that makes you more excited about Skyy? Like, I mean,
no.
Say excited.
My point.
If you say excited.
My point is that I get what the market is. I get what the market is seeing. My issue is that I just think he might not be good.
He definitely might not be good, but if we knew he was good, he'd be going like in the 7th round.
Yeah.
He's going to be the new Hardman, right? Except for he's the new Hardman. Yeah, he's the new Hardman.
That's exactly who he is. But I mean, Tony's going at pick 87. So I don't hate Skyy more at pick 145. Like, that's to me. I mean, I'm not like Tony. Like, that's a pretty big opportunity cost there to take Tony, who also has not been able to show that he's going to get on the field for a full-time role.
Yeah, like if you were to handicap Tony versus Skyy Moore fantasy points next year, you would not make it a very big gap.
Yeah, the gap in ADP is bigger than the gap you would make.
But if you were gonna make it like, which odds of having like a relevant fantasy season, then I think you do make it a big gap. Like, I think there's lots of scenarios where they both suck and Moore just is better than Tony because Tony like retires to pursue his rap career after the year or something. But
yeah, that's true. That is one way that Moore wins, is that he still sucks.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I don't know. At least when Tony's on the field, he looks really good. I'm not.
He does look really good when he's on the field.
About Skyy. I don't think we can say that about Skyy.
The exact opposite is true. They would run that stupid jet sweep play with Skyy, and every time the angle would be there, and he would never take it. He would just run in. He would immediately run into a linebacker. It was the most frustrating thing.
Yeah, but he strategically lines up wrong to get touchdowns. So you got to give him that.
How amazing is that story that he basically swapped places with Tony to get a touchdown in the Super Bowl?
And they were like, what the hell? They're like, I guess we got to run the play.
Is that Skyy? I don't want to throw it to him.
I don't think he can cut and then cut again. I don't think he's able to do it. Okay, let's try.
Oh God. Some other stuff on Skyy. Like, I did sort of analysis of rookie wide receivers of the past 10 years. And if you just look at percentile ranks for Skyy, once you filter for guys that played at least 6 games and ran at least 180 routes. So this filters out like the guys that don't play at all. Skyy was 28th percentile in yards per game, 28th percentile in PPR points per game, 51 percentile in yards per route run. So, okay. And the one bright spot is he was 78th percentile in targets per route run. So if you're going to make the bull case for him, it's that when he was on the field, he was being targeted at like a decent, but certainly not like elite rate.
But 9% first read targets per route. So it's all kind of like you're happy he was out there, but they clearly weren't looking for him. So the story of they weren't even playing this guy is extended to they also weren't calling plays to get him involved, even though he was targeted at a high rate, which maybe speaks to his ability to kind of find a soft spot in his zone or whatever. But I would say this is about where you want to probably.
If this is what he costs in June and July, like load me up. I'm not going to be able to help myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is fine, but like I would be, as someone who has previously spiked his ADP in the past, I would say if he gets kind of anywhere near he was last year, it's not maybe that I wouldn't take any, but I would be cautious with that for sure.
Yeah, I'm okay with taking him now because I think like you're probably right, Davis, that like the Chiefs don't make the splashy wide receiver move in the free agent market that people are kind of expecting.
Well, it's gonna be a trade. It'll have to be.
Yeah,
a trade.
but I think it's not going to be someone super exciting. So I think Skyy will rise a little bit because like you're probably going to have to project him for something because their wide receiver room will probably look pretty wide open by the start of next year.
Yeah,
I'm guessing
closing line value, like that would be a strong argument to draft him now, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying that, but I don't want I'm not chasing him much higher than this right now. I don't know. I'm okay with this price, but if this was 120, I'm out. I'm out on
What
that.
if the Chiefs trade for Keenan Allen or Keenan Allen gets cut by the Chargers to save some money and he ends up being a Chief?
That would crush Skyy. I mean, Sky's got to be in the slot.
Yeah. That's the Chiefs fan. That's the drumbeat right now.
The thing is, the thing with Skyy is like you just need like Justin Watson to be re-signed, and that's terrible for his value. Like
no, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because Justin Watson's an outside deep threat dude.
Watson played a lot more snaps than Skyy this year.
I know, but they basically play different positions. I think.
Okay, that's fair, but I'm saying like that's the equivalent of Justin Watson. That's a slot receiver could be ahead of Skyy more.
For sure.
I'm saying like
yeah. I mean, if they re-sign Juju, he's done. So
yeah,
I don't
him too high.
I don't think that's happening. It feels like Juju was so bad, honestly, down the stretch, and I think he showed enough to get a multi-year contract, and I don't think the Chiefs want to give him a multi-year contract. It sounds like why they didn't get him last year, and he went back to Pittsburgh, was again Kansas City didn't want to give him a multi-year contract because I think they want to keep their options open, right? Because it could be any day. Kelsey is not going to be good anymore, and then it's going to be time for them to really do something aggressive.
I'm surprised the fan fiction for the Chiefs isn't that they trade cheaply for DeAndre Hopkins.
He makes a lot of money, and it's not a 1-year deal. It's like he's going to be 32, and I think his deal runs for 3 more seasons, maybe with 1 year that you can get out, but it basically becomes like, why would we trade for DeAndre Hopkins and we simply could have just kept Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it makes no sense, like from their team building philosophy, it'd be so inconsistent to trade Tyreek and bring in.
Because I think
Hopkins and Kelsey's skill sets overlap. I think a decent bit too, right?
They do, but I wonder if that's almost appealing because Kelsey's getting so up there in age, and you'd have Hopkins for a couple years.
Fair.
I don't know. It's a fan fiction story, but I think the reason for it would be you'd have to pay way less for Hopkins than the Dolphins paid you for Hill.
Yeah, you got all those extra picks to take guys like Skyy Moore.
Right. You can burn extra picks on.
All right, let's talk Rachaad White. That's enough Skyy Moore talk. He is a riser. Pretty obvious why. Leonard Fournette got released. I think that was maybe kind of already baked into their prices that Fournette was unlikely to return to the Bucs. But Rachaad White now broke into the top 100 in ADP at pick 98. Curious, Kerrane, what do you think of Rachaad White as someone who was really in on him as a prospect last year and we're hammering him? Are you back on the Rachaad White train at this price, or what are you thinking?
I think he's solid here. You know, the issue with Rachaad White is that he was really bad as a rusher as a rookie. And so I think that Fournette being there wasn't necessarily like that bad because you're kind of like, they're going to probably draft somebody now. and they'll probably draft somebody cheaply, but there's lots of guys who I think are pretty interesting as 4th and 5th round picks in this class. So it's not, and there's also lots of guys in this class who look like kind of 1A backs that would pair nicely with Rachaad White as kind of a receiving complement.
I was going to say, lots of guys who are like, I don't know if he'll ever have 120 carries in a season, but I'm pretty interested to see what he can do as a pass catching style guy.
Well, there's guys like that, like Spears, but there's also guys that are kind of the flip, like Tank Bigsby and, you know, like dudes like that, like Charbonnet, who.
Yeah, that was going to say, Charbonnet is like the most 1985. He would have been like a 1st round pick then, you know?
Yeah, totally. So there's guys who are like, lots of guys who are, I mean, outside of like Bijan, right? No one's like complete in that way. Even Jamar Gibbs, who I like a lot, is more kind of tilted towards receiving. But if you can bring in a guy who's going to be more of an early down hammer, and there's lots to choose from, then Rachaad White's going to look mostly, you know, like a rotational kind of receiving specialist type of dude. And he was poor enough as a rusher that I don't know that he would like be able to cobble together kind of a Kamara type of role. He might be just not seeing a ton of snaps, you know, maybe he's like a true committee back. And so that being, I think, a fairly likely outcome, even with Fournette gone, I think he belongs in kind of that, you know, 9th, 10th round range. If he's moving up into, you know, the 7th or the 8th.
You know what vibe I get here? I get big Zach Moss, Devin Singletary vibes out of Rachaad White, and then whoever ends up being the grinder that he splits work with. The issue being the touchdowns aren't stolen by Josh Allen. The touchdowns just don't exist.
They don't exist in the first place.
Because Kyle Trask is your quarterback.
Because like there's a very real scenario
where
so
bad.
Like maybe the Buccaneers say we don't want to be bad, and you know, let's bring in. I don't know, you know, bring Jameis back, bring Derek Carr in, bring Jimmy Garoppolo in, whoever, and we keep Godwin and Evans, and we do one more run with these old guys. That's good for Rachaad White. But what would be bad would be we got Kyle Trask and Tanner McKee. You know, Tanner McKee is this year's Bailey Zappi or whatever. And then we have, you know, it's Russell Gage, Scotty Miller, I don't know.
Trade Mike Evans.
Yeah, Mike Evans. Mike Evans is a Cowboy. Chris Godwin is a Chief. That's the one that's really interesting. Is Godwin to the Chiefs? That's my mental fan fiction. Godwin ends up being a Chief. Like that is just a scenario where, you know, he just said. Remember that year, 3 years ago, when the Dolphins were awful, and it was like Kalen Ballage and. Yeah. It's like it's just
was it the year before Gaskin, right? It was the year before they used Gaskin.
the year before Gaskin. It was just bad, and like that's the vibes I get here, where it's like, sure, maybe he does grind out 220 touches, but he gets you like a spike week over that time frame. I mean,
but Singletary, the comp you made of Singletary was one of the bigger hits that year, you know. So I think if you can get him in kind of the very end of the single digits, like the round 9-10 area, then I think it's a bet worth making. It's just that if the market decides White this is gonna be White's backfield, or he's gonna be the clear 1A to whoever they bring in, then I think you're definitely taking on some downside risk.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I don't know. I'm pretty bearish on like the talent from what we saw last year with Rachaad White. Like I think everyone almost unanimously agrees that Lenny is like dust and was terrible, but like it's actually kind of hard to find stats that Rachaad White was better than Lenny in. He had worse PFF passing or receiving grades. He had worse PFF rushing grades. He had lower yards per route run than Lenny. Basically, the only thing that he seemed to be better in was like pass blocking. So
which was supposed to be Lenny's calling card, right?
Yeah. So like, you know, you look at his receiving grade on PFF amongst running backs, and Rachaad White was 9th out of 60 backs, which looks pretty good.
Yeah. So that's why it's a bit unfair to say, oh, he's worse than Lenny, therefore he sucked. Like he was 9th. Like
no, but the point I'm making is that it looks bad when you see Lenny at 5th, because I'm thinking like, and I haven't done the analysis of this, like, do Tom Brady running backs just like consistently get good receiving grades on PFF?
Yes,
like that wouldn't shock me. So I'm saying like, I think there is some of that in PFF grades where they try to strip out the team element, but I think some of that team element,
He rated okay and above average in ESPN's receiving score for running backs. His yards per route run were behind Lenny, but they were good. So as a receiver, I think he wasn't electric, but he was kind of mostly delivered on the promise that he would be, carve out that kind of role at the NFL. And I feel confident that he'll have that role as a sophomore now that Lenny's gone. But to me, it's the rushing numbers, which were really poor.
And do you want I don't know, like, again, like people also will look at the raw stats and they'll see, whoa, like if you take Leonard Fournette's targets and give White half of those, and he's going to get like 90 catches. It's like Tampa Bay had the most pass attempts in like per game by a lot. I think it was like 45 per game. That is going to regress like very heavily, as is the percentage of those attempts that are going to go to running backs. Like Tom Brady has historically just propped up running backs in the passing game. Sure. So like, I don't know. I'm like, if it looks like he's the clear one in this offense, I'm okay with this price and okay with it getting a little bit higher. But I think I'm actually kind of like mostly fading him here because I think people will start to project out the Bucs and it's going to look really ugly. And I think they are likely to bring in someone else here at running back that will make this a committee. So
what are the chances that they have a legit quarterback? Because if it's Trask, I mean, you're going to be able to write off this whole offense, I think, with Trask.
There's got to be a semi-reasonable chance that they get a veteran quarterback. There are almost more quarterbacks than teams available this upcoming year.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't heard anything linking like Carr or Rodgers to them. So that means they're in like the Garoppolo, Brissett, Stidham, Minshew.
I would not mind Garoppolo if I have Rachaad White.
Yeah, Garoppolo. I mean, Garoppolo to me actually feels like the Colts guy. Now that I've been thinking about this for an hour, Garoppolo feels like if they don't get Carr, Garoppolo feels.
You're right.
You're
right.
Like,
they're going to bring in Garoppolo, and Garoppolo once again will stop the quarterback who were all hyped up.
They'll take Anthony Richardson. They'll be 11-6 and be the 7th seed in the AFC, and then we'll never hear from Anthony. We'll never hear from Anthony Richardson.
Let's light all my best ball teams on fire once again from Jimmy Garoppolo. Great.
Yeah. God.
I mean, that's beautiful. That's what I want. I want Trey Lance to play because as of right now, I don't think anyone gets to claim a victory on Trey Lance either way. I don't think the people who thought he sucked always get to take a victory. And I don't think the people like me who are like, you got to just give this kid a season. Like I think he's good. Like I don't get to, there's no resolution, right?
There's no resolution.
There also, no one's thrown this out there yet. What if the Packers decide, okay, we'll trade Rodgers, but we don't want to suck. We don't think we get to watch Jordan Love every single day. He's terrible. Why aren't the Packers in the market for a veteran quarterback for less than Rodgers would cost them?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I would be.
Because their roster is they have no pass catchers, but their offensive line and their defense, it's like all expensive, right?
Yeah. I don't know why they have it. I think it's just like, I think the GM wants to be right that Jordan Love was a reasonable pick and is gonna at least get a chance to show that that's true. Like I think I've seen enough positive buzz on Love like in practice and how they view him that I think they're at least gonna like give him a chance and not bring in some veteran that really threatens his ability to start. That's just me like postulating.
They bring in Carson. They bring in Carson Wentz as the break glass in case of emergency.
That's the worst type of
Wentz
emergency.
Gonna be?
The type of emergency where you need Carson Wentz. Holy shit.
I mean, you guys think I'm joking, but Carson Wentz is going to start 6 games for some team this year.
You're probably right. He'll probably go to the Saints and start there.
Yeah. Speaking of just discussing names like Carson Wentz, this chart here, looking at the largest ADP fallers of the last week, is just absolutely disgusting. Names that nobody wants to talk about in March, like Zach Ertz, Hayden Hurst.
Why were Zach Ertz and Hayden Hurst ever going where
that's the thing. I did a show with Liam yesterday, and he informed me that people were taking Zach Ertz, and I'm like, this is a 33-year-old, 34-year-old guy coming off a torn ACL, like enough. Like
whose quarterback is coming off a torn ACL, who just drafted a tight end to replace him, who will soon replace him. Like I can't. Why are you taking him at all? Why are we drafting him?
There's no reason for it. I mean, like how these rankings actually work. Not to get too into the weeds, but I imagine someone at Underdog before there's like ADP just has to like put in their rankings, and that's the original ADP. So everything's anchored off that. And like, I don't blame them too much because like if I put together a rankings of 1 through 250, like I'm gonna put some dog shit value in there that shouldn't be drafted. Like you can't get all
What a
this
defense!
Right.
What a defense of the ranks.
But
I would
like,
do some dog shit stuff too.
yeah, it's tough. You're gonna miss on something. I would have put Purdy at like 110 or something. I would have.
Yeah, no, we know.
But anyways, I think that's what happened. Just the Ertz default rank was just egregious. No shots at whoever did that at Underdog. We love you. Anyways, let's not talk about Zach Ertz. It's not even worth it. One guy I did want to talk through here was Chase Brown. Am I right about that? Is that the rookie running back? Chase Brown. He's fallen 2 weeks in a row now to pick 233. We don't need to like have a huge discussion about him, but I'm just curious. Like, I don't think there's any reason for it. Is that just another thing where the default ranking on him was off, or like, are we?
There's
less
just
excited about him, or?
There's no buzz on him. A lot of these other guys are. There's a lot of these other guys are getting buzz. Like what is Deuce Vaughn's ADP? He's getting buzz right now.
Where are you at on him, Davis? Because I love
could not
him,
love,
but
could not love him anymore. It's like
but he's like 176 pounds.
But this is the thing. It only with a guy like that. I mean, you know this as well as I do. It only takes one coach to see something in him, right? And be like, I want to play him. Now, if he becomes a guy, he's like, okay, he's a 5th round pick. You know, kind of has a spad. The biggest issue with him, and I think this is what's probably going to keep him from ever being a guy we can use in fantasy consistently, is that he's so small that he is just going to get blown up. Pass blocking he's just not going to be able. And he didn't do a ton of pass blocking either in college because K-State just ran so much and they didn't really have like a 7-step drop back offense. But he's going to be a guy I take in the 3rd round of every rookie draft pretty much. Like I think he looks special. Battling for
him. He's fun. He looks it's a little bit different than watching Tariq Cohen.
Woodhead.
But
Woodhead is who he looks like.
Woodhead, interesting. Dude, he makes people miss from like 10 yards away, where I'm like convinced that the whatever missed tackle force numbers people are charting are like underrating him because of like that you can't count that as a missed tackle when like a guy 10 yards away falls down, but it is.
He had 150 yards and a touchdown against Alabama, and he's legit.
He looks awesome. Dude, if he weighs like 181, I'm seriously drafting him in the 12th round.
He will. The same reason Devin Achane is going to smoke his 40 time. It's like, this is the only thing that matters for his livelihood. Yeah. If Devin Achane comes in and runs a 4.35, he needs to fire everyone in his life. Like he needs to be like, my trainer, my agent, you all let me down, because it's like that's his whole ability in his life to make money.
Well, hang on, because this is you're actually cratering his stock right now, because I thought it was A-Chain. Such a better name than Achane.
Oh, it could be. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
don't come to don't. It's like
I'm not. If it's Achane, I'm not. He's.
I have a lot of them, and you're actually making me nervous that his name's Achane because.
Well, it just looks French. It just looks French to me, and that's how you would say it if it was French.
Achane.
Achane.
I guess. Yeah.
Oh boy. Actually, back in if it's Achane. I come full circle.
I think that should be our bit for the rest of the year, even if it is something else. It should be Devin Achane. You guys in on Achane, bro?
I'm in. Yeah, I'm in.
Another interesting name here for me is, as a result of how bad the wide receiver free agency class is, Mack Hollins is going to get the Zay Jones contract of this last year, where people are like, what the hell? Zay Jones was Zay Jones was not relevant, did not matter in the world of fantasy football until last season. But because teams now know it's not enough to have one elite wide receiver. It's not enough to have 2 really good wide receivers. If we don't have Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, or that's it, like we got to have 3 good guys out there. It's not enough to have 2. And you know, the years of like getting by with a DeMarcus Robinson or Justin Watson, you know, it's like teams don't really want to be doing that anymore. And Hollins, I think, showed enough last year to make himself some money. I think this looks like every year there's a guy who goes in the 18th round where you're like, wait, this dude ended up having.
Well, but are you interested?
Targets.
So you're interested in taking Hollins now, like with the hope that happens? Because there's other guys like DJ Shark, Darius Slayton. There's like lots of dudes who I think
every coach that Slayton has ends up hating him.
I think Corey
It's an
Davis
issue.
is another
Corey
one that
big cut candidate. I don't think
Yeah.
he's a free agent, but
no, he's not a free
definitely-
agent, but very likely to get cut. I think.
Yeah.
Not very likely, but somewhat likely. Yeah. No, I think I don't know. I've had way worse last round picks than Mack Hollins. And I've been predicting the 9th year breakout with him for a long time. So I think it's fine. He's a very last round pick. He had a pretty decent number of spike weeks last year. I can remember at least one like very big spike week and then maybe a couple others where he was playable. I am kind of thinking that this free agent wide receiver class is so bad that guys like Hollins have a chance to land in a useful spot.
It's actually nuts though that we would have the NFL being at an all-time 11 personnel, all-time pass rate above expected. Now average up the targets going down, which is sort of interesting. But it is just kind of crazy that it worked out this way. That none of these guys. And I guess maybe the larger point is that when teams get that dude, they're not changing teams. You're not letting these guys hit the open market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another guy I want to talk about here, who's like maybe the most fantasy relevant guy on this chart is Joe Mixon. He's down 7 spots. I think this is a combination of things. One, there's been some legal stuff that's been brought up. Uncertain about how relevant that is. It seems like those charges got dismissed, but who knows? Also, there's just talk he's a potential cut candidate. The Bengals need to free up some cap space. I think it's feasible they end up moving on for him and just draft someone else who's cheaper. But he is dropping to a point where I think I'm like, ultimately I'm not drafting him now, and I'm probably going to see if he falls a bit farther because I think that risk of him just not being on the Bengals could completely tank his ADP. But if he like ends up coming back to the Bengals and we get those signals and his price is still sticking around like the 70s or 80s, like he wasn't great last year, but I would definitely take him there. I think it smells a little bit of Josh Jacobs last year of just like a, potential 3-down running back.
Or even Miles Sanders.
Yeah, even Miles. Yeah, maybe not even Jacobs, but just like a useful guy you can get in the 6th, 7th round. Probably a 2-down grinder, but we know he like can catch passes. He's not great at it, but he can. So yeah, I'm starting to get interested. Like if we get news that he'll be back.
I agree with that take. How likely is it that you think he will get cut? Because let's say the market, is pricing in him getting cut, and he ends up staying there. Then I think he's a value where he's going, because if he's definitely with the Bengals, I would imagine he's more of kind of a classic dead zone type of pick than this type of price. But if you're getting him in the 6th round and he ends up coming back on the Bengals, I think that's probably a pretty solid win. I'm not drafting him a ton, but you're making me think I should if we think he's going to come back. Where you guys land on that?
I don't think he's going to be back because they can save a lot of money. I think they can save by not restructuring and just outright cutting him. I think Joe Goodberry said they could save $11 million, which doesn't sound like a lot. You're like, $11 million. Like the Bengals are fucked. Caps. Like they are. The Bengals are trying to win a Super Bowl. They're trying to beat the Chiefs and the Bills, and they are about to. I think the correct estimate on what they're going to end up owing per year for Chase, Burrow, and T is $100 million between the 3 of them.
Whew.
That's about 40% of the cap on 3 guys, and they all deserve it. And I don't think you can do the Bengals thing with that. Like I think you remove T, is obviously
that low? Like you might actually it might be more than that, because you could go. It's 50. Let's say 50 for Burrow,
40 for Chase.
40
probably.
I mean, now you're already at 90.
So
it's not 10 for T.
So if you are the Bengals front office, you go $11 million on Joe Mixon. His contract, I think, has another year on it because I think they extended him. And you go, bro, we got Chris Evans on the roster. Let's take, let's take 2 guys this year, sign an undrafted free agent, and figure it out. And maybe P. Ryan will come back for $2 million instead of $4 million.
Yeah, I think and also if you read the tea leaves on, I think the general manager's Duke Tobin. So he was asked about both Higgins and Mixon this week, And his response to Higgins was like, fuck off. Like, you're not getting our elite wide receiver. Like, don't even talk about trading
he
T.
said,
Higgins.
he said, you want a wide receiver, find your own.
Yeah. And then he was asked about Joe Mixon, and he's like, Mixon is definitely a running back that's currently on our roster. Like, that was basically, that was more or less his answer about Mixon. So it sounded like, if you read into that, it sounds like there's a chance. So ultimately, I think like my take on Mixon is maybe nuanced. Like, I'm not taking him now. I think he'll continue to fall a little bit, but like, I'm watching closely the news on whether he'll be back. Yeah. And once he is back, I'm going to try to buy quickly before he gets back up, because like, I think there'll be a bit of a lag where he'll still feel like kind of a gross click to people, just because he was so bad last year, was like actually kind of phased out in some of the playoff games for P. Ryan. So people will be like, oh, Mixon just like feels gross. And I think there'll be a bit of a buy window that you can jump on later. That's my guess.
I like that. I think that's the right plan of attack. And the thing with Mixon is that, like, while he is, I think, going to feel gross to select, I'm not going to enjoy doing it. It's so much different than it was last year. I basically had a full fade position on him at his ADP, which could have really hurt me, though, because he did have a weekly ceiling even last year. I mean, he's part of the Bengals offense. If he is part of the Bengals offense again, he's going to have multiple touchdown ceiling pretty easily. He's going to have 3 touchdown.
Yeah, I think he had the highest individual scoring week of any player in all of fantasy last year, right? He had like that.
I mean,
yeah,
that's the right week. It wins you a ton of money. So
yeah,
I do think you want to be in on him once the opportunity cost is much lower, if he's on the Bengals, of course, or if you think he's going to be.
Yeah. Let's jump to looking at some of the team stacks, and then we can maybe hit on some rookies at the end. I know you guys have been doing a lot of work on rookies, so I want to give you a chance there. So for people following along, we're now looking at double stack average ADPs, and how that is defined is the average of the quarterback's ADP on a team plus his top 2 pass catchers, can be either wide receiver at tight ends. And this chart is sorted with the lowest average ADP on the left side. So these are the most expensive teams: Philly, Cincy, Buffalo, KC, all the way to the cheapest teams on the far right side: New England, Carolina, and Houston. So on this chart here, it's kind of what you would expect. Not a ton of like massive things jump out here, but I think there are a few teams we talked about last week, that like Chicago, maybe Green Bay, the Rams, that look potentially underpriced. Yeah, Pat, curious if you have any thoughts on this chart here of teams that stand out as potentially under or overpriced. And also, I don't know what just happened to Davis, but
hopefully he'll be back.
Yeah, hopefully he'll be back.
Tennessee is one that jumps out to me. It does seem like Tannehill will be back. That sort of seems to be the way the wind's blowing. And then just in general, I think, are these double stacks? I guess it's sort of tough to make a Tennessee double stack. But I like Traylon Burks a lot where he's going. I think he's
Okonkwo. I think Okonkwo is interesting, right?
Okonkwo is interesting. But actually, one of the reasons I like Traylon Burks so much is that his biggest target competition right now is a part-time tight end who wasn't all that highly thought of to begin with. So I thought he looked like he was in the midst of a breakout. When he suffered that concussion, it was on that touchdown catch and then kind of derailed the rest of the season in combination with the Malik Willis stuff. So he needs them to keep Tannehill, and there's some real downside risk with him, but I like him. I also am doing stuff. I don't know how your numbers would capture this, but I'm doing stuff where I take DJ Moore and, then I tackle maybe even Terrace Marshall, and then I draft like Richardson and Levis, or, I get a couple of the rookie quarterbacks in a 3-quarterback build, or just one of them. But maybe in that build, I also have a Colt or a Texan. I like Nico Collins a lot where he's going. So the numbers probably aren't. How are you even handling the quarterback? Are you using like just the guys on the roster? You're not doing any rookies there, I assume.
Yeah, this is just like purely looking at what teams Underdog has people assigned to. So like if you see that sort of band of purple at the top on the far right side, like those are all teams where like there's not a quarterback on the roster that's being projected to really play, like Las Vegas, Tampa Bay, the Jets, the Saints, etc. Like no one is drafting that team's quarterback right now. So yeah, this chart would not handle that, but I'm totally on board with I'm doing the same thing too. When I'm taking the rookie quarterbacks, I'm using a tiebreaker at wide receiver to look at is this wide receiver on a team that could be taking a rookie quarterback? Maybe Alec Pierce is a good example at pick 150.
Yep.
If I have one of the rookie quarterbacks, I want Pierce instead of Skyy Moore because there's a chance I get that.
Yep.
I get that stack. And I think that's the way to play it right now because this tournament's going to close before we know where those quarterbacks are going, at least with certainty. So I think you kind of have to make some guesses there.
Yeah.
At the rookie quarterbacks.
So today I drafted a team where I had the Dallas stack, as I mentioned, I had a Cleveland stack. And then also I started the draft with Jonathan Taylor. I tacked on Alec Pierce as kind of just a general Colts bet. But I also took Anthony Richardson, and that was more about just me really liking Anthony Richardson and feeling like it's probably last call on getting him round 14 plus. But there's a chance he's on the Colts. So it's you get that extra little, I actually sort of broke the tie of, am I going to reach for Richardson here in the early 14th, or should I push him to try to get him in the 15th? The kind of the tie break for me was I could do this little Colts sort of backdoor thing. So I am thinking about that type of stuff a lot.
Yeah. I think it's also, and Davis is back from had a power outage. Davis, we're now looking at double stack average ADPs, but I think what's going to be important to keep in mind here is a lot of these teams' prices are being suppressed by just the fact that nobody knows who to stack them with. I think Carolina is a good example where DJ Moore, Terrace Marshall, maybe even the running backs probably would be going higher once we have certainty of who that quarterback is. Even if it's not a great quarterback, just some certainty at quarterback drives the prices up for these teams because people are
it's the way the human brain works, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I know who to stack Terrace Marshall with. I can put a name to it. So I think these teams with uncertain quarterbacks, there's going to be some anchoring effect later in the year that even once we know their quarterbacks, their skill position players are being artificially suppressed a little bit now. So I'm kind of monitoring that a little bit going forward. I think the Jets is maybe another one where Elijah Moore, he'll probably jump a lot just once we have some certainty over the quarterback because someone's going to want to. They take Aaron Rodgers, they're going to want to stack Elijah Moore with him. So I'm definitely checking that out. Davis, any teams here for you? These are sort of ordered on the left-hand side from most expensive to least expensive. Any teams here that jump out to you as too cheap or too expensive?
I mean, Arizona is the most interesting one because you are acknowledging that you're probably not going to have Kyler for a month, maybe 6 weeks, and maybe he's not even giving you the rushing. But we also we all sort of think that DeAndre Hopkins is probably not going to be on the team. They're probably entering into a little bit of a rebuild. They fire Cliff, they bring in the new coach, they're just kind of reconfiguring things, and it feels Rondale and who else is even going to be the pass?
Marquise, I guess, right?
Yeah. Hollywood, Rondale, McBride. McBride. I don't know. It just and maybe they bring Eno back, because the Eno was.
I don't think they're bringing Eno back. I guess what he said is to Cliff. So maybe,
what he said was to Cliff. No, I mean Eno ruined his chance of being probably a starting running back this year in the NFL because what's the chances that Connor is 30 now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So GG well played to Eno Benjamin running his mouth to his coach. But Arizona seems interesting. Chicago also seems interesting because I think the evolution of Fields is that he has to improve as a passer this season. For them to just continue on their development. And I think you should assume a little bit of, I think you should assume a little bit of that. And also, I mean, it seems like ADP is not buying Kmet. I mean, Kmet is did he lead tight ends in snaps played last year? He is out there all the time. He was
certainly up there. Yeah.
I've never been in on Kmet. I think outside of his rookie season, I liked him a lot in Dynasty, but I've just been unimpressed with what he's done as a pro. I think he's a great value right now. He's definitely going to be a full-time starter. And he's in a range where it's the last of those guys are going off the board or shortly thereafter. But, even Dulcich, who I like, who goes a little after him. We don't know that Dulcich is not going to be in a rotation, we can feel very confident that Kmet won't be.
I mean, the coaching staff, bro, they the first thing they said was, we don't understand why Albert hasn't been playing all year. He looks pretty good to us.
Oh no. Oh, we're doing it again.
Oh,
Year 2.
Year three on Alberto.
Year 2 of the Dulcich Alberto debate.
But aren't we? I mean, it's Sean Payton on what date? If you had to set the line, what date is the first time Sean Payton is going to say, I coached this guy named Jimmy Graham and Greg Dulcich? Let me tell you. When's the first from Sean Payton, Jimmy Graham, Greg Dulcich comparison going to be made?
Well, do you think? But what if Dulcich gets who's getting the comparison? Is it
Dulcich?
Dulcich
Will get it. Dulcich is the. I mean, clearly he must have been Nathaniel Hackett's favorite human being. Like he and Nathaniel Hackett probably had breakfast.
Did you see
together.
the greeting? It's on the ship chasing clip.
The hair.
The hair. Look at that hair. He was. I mean, it was a mortal lock. He was playing him.
I don't have a dog in this fight, so I'm hoping they draft Sam Laporta so I can take the third leg of this battle.
I mean, that is the other thing, is that this is supposed to be the best tight end class of the last decade. I got to know, have you guys entered into, are you so sick that you know who Thomas Yasman is?
I don't actually know who Thomas Yasman is. Do you know who Tucker Kraft is?
No.
Is that different from Tyler Kroft?
Yeah, I was going to say, are you just mispronouncing Tyler Kroft?
No, I'm not mispronouncing Tyler Kroft. I'm referencing a D2 tight end who apparently could go day 2. Some people
You didn't have to tell me he was a D2 tight end. I could tell from his name, Tucker Kraft.
This Yasman fella, so he was college teammates with Dalton Kincaid, the Utah tight end.
Right.
If I told you he had 14 receptions in 4 seasons in college, how many of those do you think went for a touchdown?
8.
6. Damn it.
Okay.
Yeah. He the thing is that he looks like a submarine missile or something once he gets the ball. It's insane. And he's going to get picked. This is going to be the new Doran Dickerson, Ladarius Green, Jason Morrow, Austin Safarian Jenkins type, just
all bust so far. All bust.
This time it's gonna work.
But this time it's gonna work out.
Just name some of those prominent busts at tight end.
Well, I think the very sad thing is that I think it was actually gonna finally work out for Ladarius Green. And then he had to retire because he got 3 concussions.
Wait, was he the guy that was everyone's he's the new Antonio Gates? He's coming into.
So he was Antonio Gates's backup, and then after his rookie contract, he went to the Steelers, and
he was sort of built more like Donald Parham or something. He was really long.
Yeah, he was basketball player type vibe.
I remember there was a lot of because Antonio Gates' career just held on for so long. There were so many this is the next Antonio Gates. They drafted him. He's going to be taking over him for a couple years.
Well, we've got Donald Parham on the roster who's still waiting to be that guy.
Ladarius was he was the original. He was like the RAS score guy before RAS score.
No, Doran Dickerson was before him. If they did RAS score now, Doran Dickerson would break it. He would be 11 out of 10.
11. We had to raise it to 11. Yeah. Can I wait? Can we do one more stack before we move on?
Yeah. Let's do it.
The Rams. I think the Rams are actually, and I haven't brought myself to draft Allen Robinson, and I've only done Van Jefferson a couple times, but Allen Robinson, I just checked.
There's fan fiction out there about him getting traded.
That would be the only way that he is not on the team because they can't cut him. His dead cap exceeds his cap hit. So there's no, it's by $8 million. It's like a $26 million. Yeah. Over $26 million in dead cap this season. They're stuck with him. You've got Cooper Kupp going at the very top of draft still. So drafters, clearly aren't all that concerned about a bounce back for him specifically. But then Stafford is pretty cheap. And also in kind of a range where, there's starting to be job concerns or late season, are you actually the starter by this point type of concerns with some of the quarterback. I don't have any of those with Stafford. Plus there's the potential he bounces back after, dealing with that injury last year. If you look at his last few seasons.
Isn't there an argument to be made that actually the Rams are probably going to be much better simply if Allen Robinson is not eating up 80% of the snaps and Van Jefferson and Tutu Atwell are playing instead?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of partly why I haven't drafted Robinson, because he's just been so bad. Maybe it's like kind of drafting Kenny Galladay or something. Like he might just not be out there despite.
Yeah, I mean, this is the I'm not gonna call anyone out specifically, but every year there's basically veteran wide receiver making decent money who there's some.
This is the AJ Green pick from 2021. Basically.
This is the Kenny Galladay, Rashad Perryman thing where you look at an offense and you go, I think this offense is going to be all right, and they got to throw the ball to someone, but it can't make Kenny Galladay come back from the crypt. It can't make Allen Robinson. Like Allen Robinson last year, like literally could not generate separation. He was lowest in the league at generating separation per target, and I don't think that's going to get better getting another year older.
Yeah, no, I don't either. But his ADP is 197, and so I at least like once you get down there, he's under contract. So it's like you could draft him. And Van Jefferson's even later. He's 212. And if you want to go Tutu, he's 239.
I was going to say I would so much rather have Tutu Atwell.
Yeah,
so
probably take Van or Tutu. Yeah, but I agree with you. The Rams are like, I think there's this Rams hangover just because of how much last year was a shit show. But like, if you look at Super Bowl odds and stuff, like they're projected to be like a fringe playoff team. Like this team shouldn't be this cheap. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think.
Well,
so
and they do play in the NFC where everyone is kind of mediocre, so that's pretty big for them too.
If you look at success rate over the last 2 seasons, including the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes is first, Josh Allen is second, and Matthew Stafford is third. So even with last season included, just a reminder that he was quite good in his first season with the Rams, and maybe last year was, due to this injury that he had. So
yeah, led the league in picks, won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, is there like legit retirement risk with him? I feel like I hear that thrown around.
I think we passed it. I think there was like a week where he was like, I really need to consider my future. I would assume that probably part of McVay saying I'm coming back was him sitting down with Stafford and being like, look, are we going to do this or not?
Yeah, I buy that. I think, if you take Kupp, I'm taking Stafford. Like, I don't even care. 20 picks ahead of ADP, probably just to make sure I get him at this point. He's super cheap.
Same thing. I think you are 100% correct, Sam. And I think the other guy you do that with is Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins, because their spike weeks are going to be literally 1 to 1.
Yeah, 1 to 1.
There will be no Justin Jefferson spike weeks where he doesn't bring Kirk, and certainly no Kirk spike weeks where Jefferson is not brought.
Well, I guess Hawkinson could drag Kirk along for one, maybe.
Is this year 9 of TJ Hawkinson in the 6th round?
It's year 9 of TJ Hawkinson, priced about 12 picks earlier than I want to take him.
Yeah. Where's Dalton Schultz go right now?
I think around pick 100.
Dalton Schultz currently doesn't have a team and probably won't play for the Cowboys. Dalton Schultz.
He goes around pick 107. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's big on Cowboys Twitter right now, but they're and what everyone's arguing about themselves with is Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot, are they ready to become the new Blake Jarwin, Dalton Schultz from 2 years ago, or do we need to bring in a 1-year Gerald Everett, just like
Hayden
type
Hurst
guy? Hayden Hurst, sure. Yeah, same. Do we need 1 year of a 29-year-old who can be a professional
and draft someone in one of the deepest tight end classes in a while?
Thomas Yasman. Thomas Yasman is for sure a Jerry pick. Just you show him his Just Bombs productions. Minute 13 of touchdowns.
It's gonna be pretty short. Just Bombs. It's gonna be just
13. How are you getting to 13 minutes? Like 7 angles.
One minute 13 seconds.
Rap ain't gonna get my ass a scholarship, and then just 2 seconds after that.
Do we think the Just Bombs guy? Like, what do we think he makes? Whatever he makes, he should make more.
He should make more. I've been watching like sick edits and stuff more, because the Just Bombs, I think he's getting them out slower, but like, God, I've been missing. I want more Just Bombs. I don't know if he's gotten busier or what, but I haven't been watching as much of them this year.
They're integral to my process.
They are. They're a huge part of my process. I absolutely love Just Bombs productions.
All right, let's move on. Let's wrap this up with a little talk on rookies. We've talked about the top guys a lot. I'm curious, like you guys have been deeper in the prospect stuff than I have. Like it feels like after, I guess maybe Booty is where you draw the line of like the last sort of relevant wide receiver prospect. Like nobody's talking about any of these other guys, Rasheed Rice, Cedric Tillman, Mims, etc. Like from that tier, like our drafters, right? That's just like completely flat and everyone's just like guessing like what the fuck do we do with those guys? Or like is there someone in there that you're excited about if they were to get, day 2, draft capital?
Tank Dell. If Tank Dell gets drafted in the second round, wheels up for me. Yeah, I'm all in. I mean, it's sort of like when the Eagles took Devonta Smith at 12. They're saying like we don't give a shit that he weighs 178 pounds. Same deal for now. Obviously, like Dell is I would also say he's like sturdier than the other guy you think of being that small, which is Tutu. I mean, he's bigger than that. And even like look, even Tutu. We've laughed so much about like this guy is like literally going to die playing a football game, but he was like starting NFL games for like a month last year, which is like more than some people thought he was ever going to.
He looks kind of good too. Like, I mean,
it turns out being fast and really agile is like very helpful for playing football.
Yeah, he was awesome as a college prospect. So, Tutu, I mean, yeah, I like that one. I don't. There's no one who really jumps out to me. I feel like the like where I'm sitting with these guys is that I would love to see like some bigger buzz post combine and like landing spots and stuff. Like when I get down in that range, it's like it really, really feels like guessing. Where
it does.
At the running back position, it doesn't as much. I mean, I know I am still guessing, but I'm like I can kind of just see like Kendre Miller or Deuce Vaughn or.
Well, running back, we just know it's guessing because it's just going to depend on what team they go to, right? But
it's more chaos. There's more chaos at the position, so like I feel like I've got a clearer path. It
upside is maybe higher.
Sure. Yeah. Like we have to decide if Cedric Tillman or Xavier Hutchinson or Nathan Dell is any good. It does like we don't have to make the decision on is Zach Charbonnet any good. It's just like does he get drafted by a team where 2 injuries get him in the game.
And I guess the thing, like, if those guys, if the wide receivers aren't good, then they're probably like Seth Williams, or they just like disappear off the face of the earth. Where if the running backs aren't good, that might not even matter. Like, I didn't think Brian Robinson was very good, and
I got a question for you. Is Zach Charbonnet a converted linebacker? Because that's sort of your deal, right? It's like you love
that is kind of my deal. I'm in on the converted linebackers. But you're in on the converted cornerbacks who play wide receiver as Mecole Hardman.
Oh yeah, to me, that's actually if you think about it logically, it's actually a great sign because your coach saw how fast you were. He saw how fast.
What happened with Mecole then?
Hardman was on his way to a top 30 wide receiver season this last year. Actually, if you really want to,
he kind of was honestly.
The last thing I want to say real quick at wide receiver is also that Parker Washington is just COVID is making all this class so weird, but Parker Washington is one of these guys who is making a huge bet on himself as a young guy. A lot of these guys are 4th or even 5th year guys, but Parker Washington is a legit junior, non-red shirt. So I think he seems good.
He actually pops a little bit in my stuff, but his draft position that I have him as like an early day 4 guy right now, early day 3 guy, not day 4, day 3 guy, early round 4 guy. That would be someone, or if he starts to move up NFL boards, I would be pretty excited about too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I should have probably introduced this chart a little bit more. This is showing like the players ranking from NFL mock draft database, which just aggregates a ton of mock drafts and big boards and averages it. So that's where we're getting sort of the x-axis data here. But yeah, it kind of drops off a cliff at a certain point. Tyler Scott is another guy that I've like. It seems like his Twitter buzz is like higher than what NFL mock draft database says. Like I've heard people say, oh, he could be like a surprise 2nd round pick, but just like the data of averaging mock drafts like doesn't really reflect that at all. So I guess he's a guy to monitor if individual scouts seem to be really high on him, but not popping the data. Let's go to running back. here again, showing the same data. Underdog ADP on the y-axis, consensus big board ranking here on the x-axis. I think the running back like ADP stuff is like a little bit interesting. Like people seem to be kind of taking leaps with guys like Sean Tucker, Roschon Johnson, Tyjae Spears,
Ashane.
Yeah.
Ashane.
Ashane. But he actually shows up as a little undervalued on this chart. But my point being is like the ADP doesn't really reflect the projected draft capital, which I think is fine. It's still really early. Like that stuff can shift a lot. But I think there's some like arbitrage plays that pop out here a little bit. Like for instance, like Charbonnet and Ashane, they're pretty close in the consensus big board rankings. They're only like 10 spots apart. But you can get Ashane like 50 or Ashane 50 picks later than Charbonnet. So
I mean, Ashane's range of outcomes is so much better in the NFL because if he's really as fast as he like people are projecting him to be, some team's gonna fall in love with him.
I call that portion of the draft the French Quarter.
That's pretty good. I got two big running back takes right now before the combine. One, I just need one head coach to get in a meeting with Deuce Vaughn and be like, I love you and I want to make this work.
You're the next.
I want that too, man. Let's have that happen. You're the next Darren Sproles. Music to my ears.
And the other thing is that Roschon Johnson, this is actually crazy when you think about it. Roschon Johnson was so good at pass blocking and catching passes and being on the field on third downs that he took Bijan Robinson, a Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott level of running back prospect off the field for a team that was trying to win games. That it's pretty nuts to think about that. Like that to me, that says like he seems good. And he's a converted quarterback. I love these guys who change positions. So it would actually make sense why he would be good at understanding that, why he would get the pass protections and be good at pass blocking and shit like that.
That's really interesting. So he's a guy I felt a little caught out on where I didn't really have that much of him. And I was looking at I was putting comps together for all the running backs, statistical comps, and Dameon Pierce pops up, and like some of these other guys who didn't play a lot of college.
Who for whatever reason just didn't play a ton.
Yeah, but like their numbers actually look pretty good on a per game basis. And so I've been feeling like, man, Johnson at this price, maybe it's like slightly under or overpriced relative to his expected draft position, but he seems like a guy who could have a really good combine performance and move way up in terms of expected draft capital.
He was recruited to Florida, Ohio State, and Oklahoma as a quarterback. Like he's like a sick athlete type guy, I think.
Okay, so I would be betting on the guys who you think right now are like, if you're drafting today, why wouldn't you be drafting the guys who you think are going to crush the combine? He's a prime one. McIntosh or Mick, how do you say the guy from Georgia, Kenny McIntosh?
I think McIntosh. I'm not sure.
McIntosh. Though. So he's interesting because a similar type of committee back type of profile, but his yards per route run was elite, and the guys that come up for him are the Alabama backs, like Kenyon Drake, like these dudes who didn't do a ton, but then they flashed in yards per route run. And Kenyon Drake hasn't been a great receiving back, but he's explosive. And I think it's kind of pointing to the fact of like, this guy's got probably more than you would expect. And he's sort of interesting, I think, is like a similar bet to Johnson, where it's like big time program, didn't play as much as we'd like, but has flashed some stuff on a per touch basis or a per route basis in McIntosh's case. So he's another dude where I think, I don't know, maybe has a good combine, maybe impresses people. He flashed some explosion.
Yeah. It seems like in general, these late running backs, there's some opportunities for big wins based on landing spot or just getting drafted higher than we expect. Whereas for the wide receivers, I don't know. You guys are just getting me a lot more excited about the late running backs and the late wide receivers in this class.
I weirdly feel more jazzed about the guys I expect to go on day 3 than the guys I do on day 2. Like
I'm kind of with you, yeah.
I could just see Josh Downs being fancy De'Ami Brown, like get excited about him, and he like literally never matters.
Well, how how much does he weigh? Because I've seen him in like the 170s, and that's pretty concerning.
I mean, it's like these weights that are out there, like you Google Jalen Hyatt height. It's like the internet will tell me that Bryce Young is 6'1", 200 pounds. Like when
the weight the internet's telling me is that Josh Downs is 174 pounds.
Right,
like,
no,
what is
what
he
I'm saying
weigh?
is what I'm saying is that like it's like I am going to be patient enough to wait 24 hours before I start going crazy on these weight takes. Like if I learn tomorrow that Deuce Vaughn has had 2 months to get ready for this and was only able to get up to 179, I'm going to be like, well, he just doesn't want to work hard enough to be an NFL running back, basically.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I mean, we will by this time next week, we will have all that combine data on running backs and wide receivers. So that's going to be interesting to discuss. I think we'll see a lot of shifts in the rookie ADP after the combine as people react to that. But
spread it out.
Yeah.
Like don't like go all in right now on one rookie, because I think there's lots of these guys that look interesting, but their profiles they've got holes. All these guys have holes in their profile, but I think a lot of guys have enough to where you're like, if there's suddenly draft buzz on this guy, they look really interesting. So I would there's a big bucket of guys I'd spread it out on in those rounds.
Yeah. All right, Pat, I know you got to run. We're trying to close the show each week with everyone listing their favorite value on Underdog. So do you have a name for us? Maybe someone we haven't discussed yet, or it could be someone we have talked about that you have really high exposure to right now.
Well, why don't you let Davis go first? Because I don't want to. I'm actually worried I might snipe him.
All right, Davis, what are you thinking? Favorite value right now on Underdog?
I have not been grinding these that hard, but the category of guys that feel the most undervalued to me are all the boring quarterbacks that we talked about. You know, for anywhere from Derek Carr to Baker Mayfield, who's going like undrafted, Carson Wentz. Like, you know, when I brought up Carson Wentz earlier, you guys like audibly were like, ugh. But like
true, I was
right now, the quarterback market is that you are getting destroyed paying for certainty. You are paying so much for certainty. And if you just embrace a little bit of the uncertainty, I'm pretty confident that if you just really embrace the uncertainty with these quarterbacks, you'd have really good advance rate teams and also probably unique finals teams as well. My guess would be.
So I'm tracking these. You want me to put you down for Carson Wentz as your favorite?
Put me down for Baker Mayfield with your last pick in a 20-round draft.
All right.
I'm also going dumpster diving. I'm going to go with CEH.
Oh,
this is why I was worried I might snipe Davis. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, got him in the 19th round today. 1911 today. I got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a running back under contract with the Kansas City Chiefs.
The Chiefs are so screwed money wise that they can't really afford to cut a guy on that kind of controlled labor. Yeah. So you're right.
Controlled fourth. It's a fourth year of his rookie deal. They obviously aren't picking up his 5th year contract clearly, or I don't know. They already not. However, this is his last year on the team. Is my point. But Jerick McKinnon, a free agent once again. They took forever to re-sign him. Ronald Jones was a healthy scratch all last year. So I think CH is probably the number 2 back, and he's going to have passing down work. And if they don't bring McKinnon back, and even if they bring McKinnon back, I think at a 19th round value, like, he'll score some touchdowns and stuff. He'll do the occasional thing. So I think you're actually getting a decent amount of upside with CEH, and a guy who we were drafting in like the 7th, 8th round last year. He's still going to be there.
Do we have any like hopium narratives with him? I know last offseason it was that he like lost 60 pounds, like because he was sick or something. And
what horrible health condition did he suffer from in 2022?
Well, I mean, he was out for like 3 months.
What was
he was out for like 3 months, and somehow we're gonna find that he was like fighting for his life that entire time.
What happened?
I have no idea.
All right, I'm gonna go slightly less gross. I'm
very biased against CH. I think he stinks. So it is one of those things where if I'm drafting a guy like that, I'm like, he must be wildly underpriced if I'm drafting him. That's one of the gut check things I use.
It's like the Zach Ertz thing from last year or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'll go slightly less gross. I'll go Elijah Mitchell, pick 136 right now. It just strikes me as like 30 or so spots too low. I think like even with McCaffrey there, we've seen that Mitchell has a role in the offense, and I think he'll give you some usable weeks even when McCaffrey is healthy, and he's just the ultimate like contingent bet if McCaffrey were to go down. Yeah, I just don't get like why would you take AJ Dillon 30 picks ahead of Elijah Mitchell? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So Mitchell's my favorite guy in that range right now.
I like him a lot.
Cool. Yeah. We'll be tracking these takes over the offseason. I'll do something fun with them. See which of our takes are getting closing line value versus not. So that'll be fun to track.
Baker
Anyways,
Mayfield, lock to get CLV. Guarantee it.
I think I'm getting CLV with CH in the 19th. I feel good about that.
What's the highest pick Clyde Edwards-Helaire will get drafted with on Underdog in the entirety of the offseason?
I mean, to your point, probably like the 13th round. So
where Rojo was going last year.
Where Rojo was going last year,
yeah, that seems possible.
They'll probably bring Rojo back. By the way, I know he complained and wanted to get cut midseason, but he probably enjoyed winning a Super Bowl again.
God, if Rojo finally breaks out in year 2 at the Chiefs, it'd be so sweet.
Well, year 6, right? It's year 6 breakout for Ronald.
His career, yeah. Well, he had a pretty nice 2020. He had a nice little 2020 there.
It takes a while for players changing teams, get accustomed.
Yeah, he needs to get the playbook down.
All right. Anyways, let's shut things down here. That was a lot of fun, guys. We will be back most Fridays throughout the offseason, giving our takes on the ADP movement. So yeah, a lot of stuff will change, obviously, with the draft, the combine coming up. Should be a fun couple weeks to monitor player values. But yeah, anything you guys have going on that you want to plug before we shut things down here?
No plugs.
Nothing.
Good stuff.
Plugs.
All right. Sounds good, guys. We will see you next week.